Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Zeelicious cooking series. Today I'm going to show you how to make a simple tomato pepper blend base that you can use to create your stews, your soups, your jollof rice, your jollof pasta and every other recipe that requires a tomato or pepper blend base. So usually I will make a large batch of this tomato pepper blend base that will last for about a week or 2 weeks. I made the batch for this week and then I uploaded little snippets of it on my IG stories. The questions I got were so much and I decided that I was going to film a proper video tutorial just to answer all of the questions that were asked me in my Instagram DMs. Just in case you sent a question, I'm going to ensure that I answer it all while I'm explaining the entire process. So please be kind enough to pay close attention, okay? Just in case you do not know what a pepper blend base is, over here in this part of the world, and I'm filming from Lagos, Nigeria, tomatoes and peppers are used to create lots of our delicacies like our stews, our jollof rice, and then having this handy in the fridge makes it very easy to recreate your recipes instead of having to go through the stress of blending from scratch each time you want to recreate a recipe that has or that makes use of the tomato pepper blend base. So what I like to do is make it in a large batch, store it up in the freezer, then whenever I want to use it, I just take it out of the freezer, allow it to thaw, and boom, I have my base ready for me to make whatever it is I want to make with it. So this is something I advise that you inculcate into your meal plan routine so that you can make your life a whole lot easier. And just in case you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please kindly go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the bell just right beside it so you can get instantly notified whenever we upload a new video. And like this video after watching it because I know that you're definitely going to like what you see. Alright guys, now we can go into the cooking action. To create the tomato pepper blend base I use for all of my stews, soups, pasta, jollof rice and so on, I make use of some tomatoes, tatashe, also known as chili red bell peppers, some atarodo, also known as scotch bonnet peppers, and some onions, ginger and garlic. I always like to make this in a large batch, enough to last for a week or two, and so I use a lot of tomatoes, peppers and onions and ginger and garlic. And every item on this countertop cost me about 3,500 naira only. I have gone ahead to wash all of this. I cleaned out the tomatoes and took out every black spot on it. For the tatashe, I took out the green roots and some of the seeds to reduce the amount of seeds that go into the puree. I left some of the seeds because I like the spiciness it gives. You can take yours out completely if that's what you prefer. For the atarodo, I just removed the green stem and then I also cleaned out the onions, the ginger and garlic as well. So I always like to blend and store the tomato and peppers separately so I'm able to control how I use them in different recipes. For example, for my jollof rice recipe, I use more tatashe than tomatoes, and for my stew, I use more tomatoes than tatashe. So blending separately enables me control how I use them up. I'll start with the tomatoes. Chop them up in quarters. This will allow the juice to flow out easily while simmering in the pot. You can cook them whole, but it will take much longer to release the juice and have it dried out. After chopping the tomatoes, I transfer all of it to a pot. Then I chop up some of the onions and add to the pot as well. Cover the pot and bring to a boil until all the juice is released into the pot. While that is simmering, I chop up the tatashe. Chopping it up in bits will help soften it up faster. But again, you can leave it whole, but that means you will give it extra time to cook. Grab the chopped tatashe and transfer to a separate pot. I also like to add some atarodo at this point just to help spice up the tatashe a little more. Then I add the remaining chopped onions, and just because tatashe doesn't have a lot of water in it, I add some water to help steam it up so it doesn't burn. Cover the pot and allow to simmer for just 10 minutes or until it is soft. Because I also cook with a lot of peppers, I like to have my atarodo cooked and blended separately. So again, I add the atarodo to a separate pot, then I add some water to help it steam up, then I cover the pot and allow to cook for about 10 minutes until it softens. There are a couple of reasons I like to cook my tomatoes and peppers first before blending. 1. I find that the process takes away the raw tomato/pepper taste people usually complain of after cooking a pot of stew or rice. 2. It helps prevent the addition of excess water while blending. Adding excess water means you have to cook the puree for much longer after blending to dry out the water, which doesn't happen if you use this method. And with this method, cooking time is only required to soften up the tomatoes and peppers, which usually takes only about 10 minutes. 3. The consistency of the puree you get from cooking it first before blending is way different and much better than the consistency and texture you get from blending it first before cooking. It's smoother and more vibrant in color if you cook first before blending. 4. It helps retain the nutrients in the tomatoes and peppers because cooking time has been drastically reduced by more than half. Like I said before, the only cooking time needed is about 10 minutes just to help soften the tomatoes and peppers slightly. But if you were blending before cooking, you will spend over an hour cooking the tomato and pepper blend mix just to dry out the water. And you can literally cut that all out if you're using this method. The other ingredients added, the onions, the garlic and ginger, retain their fresh taste, flavor and aroma because you do not overcook them after blending them. Moving on guys, let's check on the tomatoes. So after about 5 minutes of cooking, look at all the juice released from the tomatoes. At this point, I'll leave the pot open so that the steam is released and the juice can dry out a lot faster. And then after just 5 minutes of cooking, that's what the tatashe is looking like, and same for the atarodo. I'll give it another 5 minutes before taking it out. After 10 minutes, the tomatoes should have softened and reduced in size. At this point, you can go ahead and decant or remove as much of the excess liquid from the tomato as possible. The tatashe and atarodo has softened up really well as well at this point, so I proceed to take the pot off the heat. I have a blender that is heat resistant, and so I really do not wait for it to cool down completely. But if you don't have a heat resistant blender, then you have to wait for the tomatoes and peppers to cool down completely so you do not hurt your blender. I start by blending the tatashe, which is the chili bell pepper, and to the blender I also add some ginger and garlic. Adding the ginger and garlic at this point helps retain the flavor and aroma because overcooking kills their flavor. So do not add them in the pot while you are cooking, okay? You do not need to add any water to the blender. It will blend easily because the tatashe is already very soft. That's what the consistency of the tatashe looks like after blending. I transfer it back to the pot just to allow it to cool down completely before packing it in the Tupperware. You do not need to cook this again. Next, I blend the atarodo. Again, no water needed, and I didn't add any ginger or garlic because I want to keep it plain. That's what the consistency of the atarodo looks like after blending. Before I blend the tomatoes, I ensure that the blender is thoroughly washed so I don't have the leftover peppers in the blender mixing up with the tomatoes. Then I add the remaining ginger and garlic and then I blend. Again, there's no need to add water, it will blend easily. That's what the consistency looks like after blending. Again, you don't have to cook this after blending. And you don't necessarily have to cook and blend your tomatoes and peppers separately. You can do it together, but be mindful of the ratio of tomatoes to tatashe and atarodo you're using. You don't want anyone overpowering the other. After cooling, place in a Tupperware according to how you intend to use it up. So I'm packing the tomatoes first and portioning it according to how I would use it, followed by the tatashe, and then I'll put all the atarodo puree in one plate. I use a color coding method to identify it. I use the same color of lid to cover the tomatoes and tatashe puree because the tomatoes has a brownish red color and the tatashe has a vibrant red color, so it's very easily identifiable. And then I'll use a different color for the atarodo. Alternatively, you can label with the marker. Store in the freezer and only bring out the portion you want to use few hours before using it to enable it to thaw completely. Tomato and pepper blend base will stay fresh in the freezer for up to 1 month and even more, but please do not store in the fridge. So now you know how to make a tomato pepper blend base. I hope that I've answered all of the questions that were sent in, and just in case I didn't answer a question that you may have asked, please kindly go ahead and just ask it in the comment section. I'm going to be there the first few hours after posting this video to answer any more questions that you have, just so that I can ensure that I'm helping a lot of people make life in the kitchen a whole lot easier. And of course, if this tutorial was helpful to you, please kindly leave me a comment in the comment section down below so that I know. And it just makes me happy that I'm helping as much people as I can. Alright guys, I'll see you next time with another mouth-watering and delicious recipe. Until then, remember to be very kind to one another, love yourself generously, and it's me, the queen of fun and fast cooking, signing out right now. I love you all. Take care.